How many of you remember how to use, do you remember how to use the radical function and also the fraction function on your calculators? So in the first problem, you could simply just put in this entire problem into your calculator, right? You don't even need to know how to do it by hand. Obviously, knowing it by hand is definitely the way to go, right? But here, I'll do it by hand, and you can do it by calculator. So 4 radical 3 you can't simplify. 2 radical 300 you can. 2 radical 3, let me zoom in a little bit here. 2 radical 300 is radical 100 times radical 3. So that's 2 times 10 radical 3 equals 20 radical 3. So this problem is 4 radical 3 plus 20 radical 3 gives you like radicals, right? So it's 24 radical 3. Okay? Any questions with that? Eventually, I hope if you're going to Math 6, you're really good at this stuff by hand, right? So number 2, right? Number 2 is radical 7 distributive property, right? So I like to kind of look at it in terms of the radical 7 outside, right? I have to distribute this radical 7. So I see radical 42 is actually radical 7 times radical 6. So when I distribute this, I see that the radical 7 times radical 7 is 7 and then radical 6 plus 5 times 7. So my answer here is 35, right? So this is equal to 35 plus 7 radical 6, right? Which is what? Answer C. Well, and the previous one was B. Should circle that, right? So as you're following along, try to do this on the calculator. Make sure you know how to do it. Okay. Now, number 3. If you remember the quotient rule of the radicals, right? This right here, you can actually write this as 1 radical. This is 2 times 98 over 7. So if I did 98 over 7, this cancels out. 7 divides into 98 14 times, right? 14 times. So the 7 is now gone. So I just have radical 2 times 14, right? Which you can multiply and get 28, or you can simplify from there, right? There's a 2 times 2, right? So this is 2 times 2 times 7, 7, right? So 7 is the only thing left in the radical, so you get 2 radical 7. Okay, does this all look familiar? I mean, it should, right? Because we've been doing radicals in chapter 8 as well. Alright, I want you to try numbers 4 and 5 on your own. See if you remember. We have parentheses, but no exponent outside of the parentheses for both, right? So this is just a product rule of exponents. So that means I can do 3 times negative 12, right? And then I can do x to the 7th times x to the 8th, y to the negative 3rd times y to the 16th. I just reorganize them so it's easier to see, right? 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. X to the 7th times x to the 8th is x to the 7 plus 8 is 15. Y to the negative 3 times y to the 16, that's y to the positive 13. And that's our final answer. And that is C. For number 5, you see the 2, right? This squared is outside of the parentheses here. So this one is the I'm sorry, not the quotient, the power rule. So power rule. Okay? So that means you take every exponent inside and multiply it by that 2. Okay, so this first 2 here is to the first power. So that means 2 to the 1 times 2, x to the 2 times 2, y to the 6 times 2, z to the 4 times 2. Right? So that gives me 2 squared is 4, x to the 4th, y to the 12th, z to the 8th. And that is answer choice C. Any questions there? All right. Yeah, if anything is unclear, just type it out in chat. Let's try the next 3 problems. All right, the first one you have to distribute to remove parentheses first on both, right? Second one is distributive property. Third one is dividing by a monomial. So every numerator is divided by that denominator. For 6, we first distribute to remove parentheses. So the first group here is just 17x squared minus 10x plus 19. And for the second group, we have minus is being distributed, that minus sign. So this is plus 7x squared plus 3x minus 3. Now if you combine like terms, 17x squared plus 7x squared, that's my 24x squared. Minus 10x plus 3x, that's my minus 7x. And then 19 minus 3, that's plus 16. So as you can see, that is answer choice D. For number 7, we got to multiply distributive property, right? So we start off with the 3x, and you multiply it with every term in the other factor. And then this negative 6, right? Don't forget it's a negative 6 multiplies with every factor. Okay, so let's start off. We have 3x times x squared is 3x cubed minus 9x squared plus 9x. That's my 3x, right? Now you do the negative 6, right? Negative 6x squared. So negative 6x squared plus 18x minus 18. Now you can combine like terms. So 3x cubed is the only term that has x cubed minus 9x squared minus 6x squared. So that's minus 15x squared. And then plus 9x plus 18x gives me plus 27x. And lastly, minus 18. So let's see here. This is minus 15x squared plus 27x minus 18. That's choice B. Did everyone get that one? All right, for number 8, we have to divide all the terms in the numerator by negative 3x to the 5th. So if you write them out separately, this is what it'll look like. Just like that, right? So plus 9x to the 9th over negative 3x to the 5th minus 15x to the 5th over negative 3x to the 5th. This is what it would look like separately. I don't bother writing this out. I just do it, right? So what do I get? Negative 6 over negative 3 is positive 2. X to the 18th over x to the 5th, that's my quotient rule, so you subtract. 18 minus 5 is 13. Then I move on. 9 over negative 3 is negative 3. X to the 9 minus 5 is 4. The last term is negative 15 over negative 3 is positive 5, so I put plus 5. And then x to the 5th over x to the 5th, that is equal to x to the 0, which is 1. Right? So 2x to the 13th minus 3x to the 4th plus 5. That gives me choice D. Okay, any problems with that? Okay, let's move on. The next 3 are factoring problems. So I'll give you a few minutes, try that. Let's do the first one here, number 9. I see two terms here that need to be factored, so I'm going to look for the GCF. I see that the 45 and 20 gives me a 5, and then there's a y and a y cubed, so it's 5y. So if I factor out 5y, I get 9x squared minus 4y squared. I see that 9x squared minus 4y squared is a difference of squares. So that factors into 3x plus 2y and 3x minus 2y. So that gives me letter C as my solution. For number 10, we have a trinomial, right? It's a quadratic to be exact. So I need to figure out which of these following answer choices is a factor, right? So I'm just going to factor the problem myself. I see that a is equal to 2, so I have 2x here and x there, right? 2x times x gives me, let me make that parentheses there, x squared, right? And then my last term is negative 10. So what are the factors of 10 in general? It could be 1 and 10 or 2 and 5, right? So I have to think about my outer. One of them is negative, right? And my outer plus the inner has to add up to 1, right? So I'm going to go with the 2 and the 5. If I put the 2 here and the 5 there, I see my outer is 4x, right? And my inner is 5x. Since I'm going for plus x, right, the 5x needs to be positive, the 4x needs to be negative. So this is plus 5 and minus 4 there. So that gives me 2x plus 5, which is b, right? X minus 2 is not listed here. So it's just 2x plus 5 is the solution. Okay, now for this last one, we have factor by grouping problem here. I'm going to look for the GCF again. So in my first group, right, up to there, I see that 3a is the GCF. So I factor 3a, and I get 5x plus 6y. Then I move on to the second group here. The 8b, right? So this is plus 8b. That's my GCF. And I get 5x plus 6y. Now I have the common binomial factor in the parentheses, right? That's 5x plus 6y. And then the leftovers, that's another factor, right? 3a plus 8b. So let's see here. I have 3a plus 8b. That's letter A. And I don't see a 5x plus 6y listed. So that's the final answer. All right. Number 12. This one we're just going to have to take what's there and, try to translate this, right, into an equation or something or expression, whatever this is, right? So let's read this together. If k represents a number, which equation is the correct translation of the sentence? So a number, right? K represents a number. So this is k. So 41 subtracted from 7 times k. So I have 7 times k, and 41 is subtracted from that. So that's why this is minus 41. Is my equal to symbol and equal to 65. So what is that? 7k minus 41 is answer C. Okay, any questions with that? So you will encounter probably one of those on the final exam. So please practice that. Let's see what else we got. Oh, this moved. Let's go to the next. Why isn't it moving? Things lagging there. The best way to do this problem is to, well, typically when you go to more advanced version of this, you multiply by the LCD. But because we have just one fraction equal to another fraction, we can actually treat this like a proportion and cross multiply. So what I'm going to do here is just remember the numerators, fraction bars are grouping symbols. So the numerators have this set of parentheses that we have to remember about, right? So when you cross multiply, you have 9 times x plus 8, the quantity, right, is equal to 15 times the quantity x plus 4. If you forget the parentheses, then you're going to forget to distribute, right? So now this is 9x plus 72 is equal to 15x plus 60. Now this is a one variable linear equation. So what I'll do is I'll just bring the x's to the left hand side, right? So I'm going to subtract 15x to both sides. So when I do that, I get negative 6x is equal to, and then I subtract the 72 to both sides, and I get negative 12. And lastly, divide by negative 6, so x is equal to positive 2, right? And for those of you who have the 36X Pro, the TI 36X Pro, you could do this. You could type this into the problem solver. Do you remember that? You got to go to second, and then I forget which button it's above, but it says problem poly solver maybe, and then it's the linear one, equation one, the first one, and you could type in the fraction x plus 4 over 9 equals x plus 9, or is number solver. I think that's what it was called, number solver. Do you remember that on the calculator? So give it a shot so that you know how to do it, but also make sure you know how to do it by hand. Number 14, we're going to do distributive property and solve for x, right? So we have 8 minus 2x is equal to 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, and minus 8x. So we have 8 minus 2x is equal to negative 10 minus 8x. So to solve for x, we bring our terms with x to the left-hand side, our non-x terms to the right-hand side. So we add 8x, so we get positive 6x is equal to negative 10 minus 8. So that's negative 18. We can divide by 6, and we get x is negative 3. Right, so that's C. And the previous one was D. Okay. I'm gonna do number 16, just so that we haven't done that one in a while. And then the rest you can try doing it on your own. And go into test 2 and try working on that for homework. You don't have to finish it, but I do want you to like start reviewing all these problems so you can find your weaknesses. Alright, number 16 says solve for y. So I identify y being on the right hand side of this equation. So I need to subtract 5x to both sides. So I got z minus 5x is equal to 8y, right? Now that y is almost isolated, we're going to divide both sides by 8, right? And the 8's cancel out. So we have z minus 5x over 8. So that already is the first answer choice. Sometimes they may, who knows, but they may split this up into two different fractions, right? So they can actually do this. Z over 8 minus 5/8 x is equal to y. So these are the same thing, right? But please be mindful of that because they might not list it in one or in the first way, or they might not list it the second way. You have to see for yourself. Okay? Negative x minus y equals negative 6. Negative 2x plus y equals negative 3. So we have two ways of solving systems of equations, right? The first way is through the elimination, right? We have to first multiply so that we have one of the variables, the coefficients need to be opposites, and then we add to eliminate, right? So let's try it both ways. I'm going to do it both ways, okay? So the original problem, negative x minus y equals negative 6. Negative 2x plus y is equal to negative 3. Now, I already see in this problem, my coefficients for y are opposites, right? So I don't need to multiply by anything. I simply add vertically, right? So negative x minus 2x is negative 3x, and the y's cancel out, right? These y's cancel out to a 0y is equal to negative 6 minus 3 is negative 9. So I have a one variable equation. I divide by negative 3. Now I get x is equal to positive 3. Right? Now they're asking us what is the y coordinate. So, I mean, we have to solve for the y anyway. We can substitute it back into either one of the original equations. So I'm going to substitute it into the first. So negative x minus y is equal to negative 6. So now I add 3 to both sides. So negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. So now I have to divide both sides by negative 1, right? So divide by negative 1, and I get y is equal to positive 3. Therefore, my solution is A. Okay, number 17. Let's try that. Actually, did we do number 17? I think we did, right? Let's move on to, well, just in case we didn't, I'll do it really quickly. This is factorable, right? So you can either plug it into your polysolver, which I think we did do that. So real quick, we have x minus 5, x plus 3 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. So x is equal to 5, or x is equal to negative 3. And that's C. Okay. Number 18 is our Pythagorean theorem. This is a right triangle, right? Therefore, you have your A, B, and C, right? Remember, A squared plus B squared equals the hypotenuse, C squared. And then you would take the square root of both sides, right? Okay, so I know I have 3 squared plus 12 squared, and then the square root of that gives me C. Right, so this is 9 plus 144 is equal to square root of 153. Now, there you go, yeah. Now, you should definitely do this part on the calculator. Square root of 153 is what? 9 times 17. Square root of 9 times root 17 is 3 radical 17. So there's your answer. Any questions? Okay, next up is our linear inequality. So to solve this, we first need to, I'm going to write it on the right hand side, negative x plus 7 greater than 5x minus 17. I need to have x on one side and non-x's on the other. So let's subtract x's to the left. So subtract 5x. So you got negative 6x plus 7 is greater than negative 17. Then we need to get x by itself, so we subtract 7 to both sides. So we get negative 6x is greater than negative 24. Lastly, we divide both sides by negative 6. So x, now the inequality sign has to change, right? it becomes a less than positive 4, right? And what does that look like? We have 4 with an open circle. Less than means to the left. So that's answer A. Any questions with these so far? Are you getting them? Hopefully. All right, this is from the first week of school practically, right? Or second week. Yeah, I think it was the first week. We do simple substitution here, right? We got 2 squared times negative 2 plus negative 2 times 2 plus negative 2 squared, right? So this is 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 2 squared is positive 4, right? So this is negative 16 plus 4 is equal to negative, wait a second here, 4 times 2. Oh, sorry about that. Oh man, it's like cold here. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Oh, sorry, this is negative 4. Man, coffee hasn't kicked in yet. This is negative 4 plus 4, right? So negative 4 plus 4 is 0, and this is equal to negative 8. So it's D. All right. Okay, last couple of pages here. Do you remember linear equation graphs? All right, well, let's take a look. We have negative 4x plus 2y is equal to 8. So we need to find the correct graph, right? Since it's multiple choice. So what do? You just find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts, right? X and y intercepts. How do you do that? Remember, you cover up method that I showed you. You make x equal to 0. So the first one, you make x 0. So that way, you only have y to solve for. So 2y is equal to 8. Y is equal to 4. Right? So this is when x is equal to 0. Then you do the same thing and you make y equal 0. So this is for y is equal to 0. So you get negative 4x is equal to 8. Therefore, you get x is equal to negative 2. Does that make sense? Right? So my order pairs are x, comma, y, and x, comma, y. Where do we see that? Do you all see it? 0, 4, negative 2. So I have 0, 4 here. Negative 2 should be over here, right? Which graph has that? Right here. This one does. Right? So it's C. You notice how graph A has 0, 4, but it has positive 2, 0. So that's not it. Graph B has negative 2, 0, but 0, negative 4, so that's not it. So be careful. Okay? All right, let's look at 22. It says find the equation that passes through negative 6, 10, the line that passes through negative 6, 10, and 5, negative 12. So remember, M is slope, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I were to call these x1, y1, x2, y2, then you can do negative 12 minus 10 over 5 minus negative 6. So that gives me negative 22 over positive 11 equals -2. Any questions how to get slope? So right off the bat, because my slope is -2, I know that A is wrong, right? And D is wrong. So it shows me my y-intercept is going to be either 10 or -2 if I keep going. Alright, so let's solve the equation here, the line. So you can either use point slope, right? Point slope form is what? Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, or slope intercept form, which is what most people are comfortable with, which is y equals mx plus b, right? And I'm sure most of you probably did y equals mx plus b, so let's just do it that way and see if you got it right. So I have to solve for my y-intercept, meaning I substitute one pair of points. So let's do the first one. I'll do y, 10, is equal to m, which we just solved, times x plus b, right? And hold on a second here. Okay, so this gives me, sorry, 1 second here. Okay, so this is positive 12 here, plus b on the right hand side. So I subtract 12. I get -2 is equal to b. So now with my -2, right? So I have my -2, I have my slope. I can combine them as y is equal to -2x minus 2. So that gives me answer choice C. Any questions? All right. Next one is the vertical line passing through the point, right? Vertical line means it's an x is equal to equation, right? So it's the x coordinate. So x is equal to -9, right? If they ask for horizontal line, what would the equation be? Does anyone know? Horizontal line would be the y coordinate. Y is equal to 10, right? Vertical line is x is equal to -9, sorry. So it's A. So you do have to know both of them because they can test you on either one. All right. Last one here, or last two, sorry. Find the slope and y-intercept. So we have to solve and change it into y equals mx plus b. Right? Y equals mx plus b. Very, very straightforward here. So since y is on the left-hand side, we're just going to add 9x to both sides. So -2x is equal to 9x, right, since we added, minus 8. Then we divide both sides by -2, right? So we have y, I'm sorry, oh, why did I do that? I put an x instead of y there. Sorry, that should be a y. Okay, so divide by -2, we get y is equal to -9/2 x plus 4. And as you can see, the slope is -9/2, and the y-intercept is 4, right? So all you have to do is say m is -9/2, and the y-intercept is 0, 4. And that is answer choice C. Any questions there? All right, 25. What is the slope of this line? Very simple. I go to this point right here, 0, 6, and I count down and right until I see a clear point. I see another clear point right here, right? This is 1, 4. So that means it's down 2 and right 1, right? Remember, change in y over change in x. That's all you have to do. So down 2, right 1. So that's -2. Easy. Okay? And as you can see, it follows that slope, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, the whole way, right? Down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. Okay? So that should be pretty easy to identify. All right, well, that was the first practice exam. How many of you actually did the second one?